Hello, welcome to this presentation where I'm going to take you through shipment alternatives for transporting dangerous goods by air. Remember, safety compliance should be everyone's #1 obligation. Cost efficiency and time efficiency can drop in later. The scope of this presentation is going to be giving you the list of alternatives for shipping dangerous goods, the basis of choice. Under this, I'm going to explain the critical determinants of shipment types. And finally, I'll talk about the benefits. Reference is made to the DGRA 64th edition. Remember to always make reference to the current regulations because information could be outdated, it could be deleted or revised. We're going to take an example of sodium nitrite, UN 1498, and let us assume we have 4 different shipments, one to USA, another one to Nigeria, another one to Sweden, and another one to India. So we have item 1 weighing 30 grams of sodium nitrite, item 2 weighing 500 grams of sodium nitrite, item 3 weighing 22.68 kg of sodium nitrate, and lastly, item 4 weighing 50 kg of sodium nitrate. For us to choose which quantity we are going to ship under which shipment provision, we must consider safety, cost, and time. All right, so here we are with the shipment alternatives. The first alternative is shipping as accepted quantities. These are dangerous goods in small quantities, shipped with less stringent regulations. In other words, the requirements are relaxed. Limited quantities, these are slightly in larger quantities, but not too large to be fully regulated. We also have the fully regulated shipments, but which are accepted to be shipped under the provisions of passenger and cargo aircraft. And finally, we have cargo aircraft only. So we had item 1 of 30 grams, and that one can be shipped under the provisions of accepted quantities. Remember, when we have a code in column F, we have to go to the DGRA table 2.6.alpha for us to know the limit in regards to the maximum permitted quantity for inner packagings and maximum permitted inner quantity per outer packaging. So all that information is not given to us here under the list of dangerous goods, but rather on table 2.6.a. So item 1 is going to be shipped under the provisions of accepted quantities because the actual net quantity is within the limit for E1. Item 2 was 500 grams. So 500 grams have exceeded 30 grams. 30 grams, that was the maximum for accepted quantities under code E1. Now that we have 500 grams, we don't have a chance to ship item 2 under the provisions of accepted quantities. And in this case, we shall opt for limited quantities where the maximum is 10 kilograms. That will be limited quantities. And item 3 is 22.68 kg, which has exceeded the limit for limited quantities. And so since it's under the limit for passenger and cargo aircraft, we shall therefore ship item 3 under the provisions of passenger and cargo aircraft. The difference with shipping under columns I and J is that this shipment is going to be fully regulated. And by fully regulated, we mean the shipment has to meet all the regulatory requirements. Item 4 was containing 50 kg, and 50 kg has exceeded the limit for a passenger aircraft. And therefore, since it's within the limit for cargo aircraft only, we shall therefore ship it under the provisions of cargo aircraft only. So that's how we are going to choose which shipment type for the respective quantities of sodium nitrate that we have. Then we have the last alternative, which is not subject to the regulations. In operations, these two statements are used interchangeably. However, we see them explicitly used in two different scenarios. The first scenario being that where a substance or article meets the requirements as laid down under exceptions. We have general exceptions given to us in section 1, that is applicability of the DGR. And then we also have several exceptions within section 3, which is classification. For example, when you go to class 6, specifically division 6.2, you're going to realize that below the table, which gives us the division 6.2 UN numbers, we have a list of exceptions. It's the longest list I've ever seen within the DGR. So if you're intending to ship, for example, infectious substances, first go to the exceptions listed and see if your type of infectious substance is either subject to the regulations or not. For those which are not subject to the regulations, they put the requirements under exceptions. So if you're lucky to find that your shipment falls under that specific group of the accepted dangerous goods or accepted infectious substances, then that means that you're not going to meet all the requirements of the regulations, apart from a few, such as those of the airway bill. And then the second scenario, before going to the second one, still on the first one, we also have some dangerous goods having requirements relaxed by special provisions. So always refer to the special provisions assigned to that specific entry. For example, here under sodium nitrite, we have special provision A803. So in case you read that special provision and you meet the requirements for relaxing the rules, then you can enjoy. All right, so the second scenario is that where an item or article is listed by name in the list of dangerous goods, but with the wordings not restricted across the applicable columns. These columns are column G and H, those ones for limited quantities. Column India and Juliet, those are for passenger and cargo aircraft, but fully regulated shipments. And columns Kilo and Lima for cargo aircraft only. So if you have not restricted written across all those columns, that means that the shipment does not have to meet all the requirements of the regulations, of course, apart from the few, such as segregation and then airway bill requirements. I am also assuming that the kind of people listening to my voice right now are those who have attained training or the ones who are undergoing training. Either ways, you should be having background knowledge about what I'm teaching because it's not all inclusive. Okay, so basically this is the list of the shipment alternatives. You can ship as accepted quantities, limited quantities, passenger and cargo aircraft only, and then not restricted. All right, so that takes us to the basis of choice. These are the critical determinants of shipment types. The first one is permission. So we are either permitted to ship a specific article or substance, or it is forbidden. When it comes to accepted quantities, when you see code E0 in column F, that means that that item cannot be shipped under the provisions of accepted quantities. For limited quantities, we shall see the word forbidden. Passenger and cargo aircraft under column I and J, we shall see the word forbidden. And so is cargo aircraft only. Under column K and L, we shall see the word forbidden. So if you see the words forbidden, 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 then that means that you cannot ship that specific article or substance under those specified provisions. But if we have limits, as we can see, we have 10 kilograms, 25 kilograms, and 100 kilograms. That means that that shipment is permitted to be shipped by air. So the second determinant is quantity limit per package. So the quantity, the net quantity of a substance or an article can dictate which provision we must use when shipping that specific item. So if the quantity has exceeded that of accepted quantity, for example, the maximum for outer packaging specified under code E1 is 1 kilogram. If you're having more than 1 kilogram, you cannot take it under the provision of accepted quantities. The maximum for limited quantity is 10 kilograms. So if an item has exceeded 10 kg, then it cannot be shipped under the provisions of limited quantities. And for fully regulated, still on a passenger and cargo aircraft, the maximum is 25 kg. If the shipment has exceeded 25 kg, it can also not be shipped under the provisions of passenger and cargo aircraft. And finally, the maximum for cargo aircraft only is 100 kg. So that is how quantity limits us to make choice of some specific provisions of shipping dangerous goods. Then number 3 is properties of dangerous goods. Now within classification, we have characteristics given to us for each class within the definitions. And then we also have properties given to us within the respective class names or classes. So it's very important for you to go and read the definitions and the properties so that you familiarize yourself with the ranges which make an article or substance to fall within that specific class. For example, we have several aspects to consider if we want to know whether a liquid is flammable or not. One of them is the flash point. So according to the regulations, we get to know that when the flash point is greater than 60 degrees Celsius, that liquid is not considered to be a dangerous goods. So we're not going to ship it as flammable liquids because the level of flammability is low. So we have some other aspects to consider for different classes. For example, within the definition for gases, we still have a range. So you have to make sure that the gas you're transporting fits within that range as explained. So if it doesn't fit within the range given to us in section 3 under classification of a gas, then that means that probably that specific gas is not considered a dangerous good. Finally, we have the state and operator variations where applicable. This means that you're supposed to check the steps involved and the operators involved. If it's a journey which is going to be completed by more than one operator, then you're supposed to check the variations for each operator. For example, we have that operator there. I earlier made a video and it wasn't uploaded, I think, because I mentioned these operators. So now I'm going to skip the mention and then I'll straight away go to what I want to tell you. So for that operator right there, if you go to operator variations under SV01, it reads, dangerous goods in accepted quantities will not be accepted. So this specific operator here does not accept dangerous goods in accepted quantities. And then we also have a second operator right there. I won't mention the name. So when you go to that operator under SN Sierra November 05, it states dangerous goods in limited quantities will not be accepted for carriage, with the exception of consumer commodity ID 8000, which means that this airline here can only carry consumer commodity items under the provisions of limited quantities. Anything else, it's a big no. All right, so let's look at the benefits. For accepted quantities, not required is a UN approved packaging, a shipper's declaration, and hazard labels. So we know other requirements for shipping under the provisions of accepted quantities, such as the airway bill requirements, some specific requirements like marking. So we need to meet all those other requirements, but what is not required is what I'm drawing your attention to right here. All right, so for limited quantities, not required is a UN approved packaging. So you don't require a UN approved packaging, but you require a shipper's declaration, you require hazard labels, and there are other requirements to meet, but at least you're not going to incur costs for buying a UN approved packaging. For passenger and cargo aircraft, we all know that if a destination is served by multiple scheduled flights for that specific airline, transporting cargo is going to be easy, because even if you miss to load your shipment on a flight, a Monday flight, that means that you can load it on a Tuesday flight, which is not the case in some areas, such as the remote ones, whereby a passenger flight operates once in a week. And then when it comes to cargo aircraft, only freighter, they do operate probably once in a month. So it would be very, very difficult for you to have this shipment move because you do not have like so many flights. So in this case, with multiple scheduled flights, you're going to have reduced lead time, low inventory cost, and low storage costs. You're not going to keep these shipments within your warehouse for a long time before they are flown out. Lastly, not restricted or not subject to the regulations. These are the ones which are accepted, such as the list we see in section 1 and applicability. And then the several ones I mentioned within classifications, such as division 6.2, infectious substances. We have quite a number of exceptions. So, and then also not restricted for those items which are listed by name in the list of dangerous goods, but we have the words not restricted given to us in those respective columns. So we don't require UN approved packagings for such items. We don't require the shipper's declaration. We don't require hazard labels. Thank you so much for listening. Hopefully the presentation was helpful. Safety is everyone's responsibility.